Animation has often been used as a means to respond to the real world. Whether being a social critique or just referencing pop culture, the fictional content of animation has consistently had its roots in the context of the real world. Using animation to address the real world is something that is clearly seen in the films Akira and Princess Mononoke. Being anime films, both works heavily connect with the Japanese perspective while also presenting messages of social change to the entire world. In 1988's Akira, director Katsuhiro Otomo uses a futuristic setting to provide commentary on post-war Japan and warn of repeating cycles of destruction in the future. Meanwhile, 1997's Princess Mononoke speaks volumes about the current climate crisis through the use of a medieval setting and nuanced characters. Although these two films tackle separate issues through the use of different subject matter, they are both similar in responding to the cultural landscape in which they were created and by inspiring their audience to create change in the world. From the bold opening shot of Akira, it is immediately clear that this film is going to have a lot to say. The explosion captured in the beginning of the movie is the key to understanding the contents of the film and the context in which its message comes from. Within the film, the massive explosion is the catalyst for all of the story's events, including the destruction of Tokyo, the beginning of World War III, and the rebuilding of Neo-Tokyo. But outside of the story, this explosion links the film with the real-world issue of nuclear warfare. In particular, this explosion evokes memories of the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. The nuclear bombings on Japan created an immense shift for the nation on countless different levels, but also resulted in a shift in apocalyptic media. Many of the disaster movies or media produced by Japan after World War II were in response to this nuclear tragedy, and Akira is no different. However, being produced in the 1980s for a new generation of Japanese society, the film displays an updated perspective on post-war Japan as well as the direction the country should take moving into the future. The futuristic setting of Neo-Tokyo is used to reveal the message and context of the film in even greater detail. Being a city created after a mass destruction, Neo-Tokyo draws clear parallels to the real-world state of post-war Japan. In addition, the city of Neo-Tokyo was recovering from a global conflict while also being on the verge of another great destruction occurring through the power of Akira. The unsure confidence in their city and the arms race for Akira's power ties back to the context of the Cold War, which placed the entire world in fear of nuclear fallout. The themes of destruction and rebuilding are identified by scholar Thomas Lamar as a repetition of historical trauma, in which the city of Neo-Tokyo is in a constant cycle of bomb and build, rebomb and rebuild. This pointless cycle is critiqued constantly in the film. I think Lamar puts it best when he wrote, "Otomo wants to break with the constitutive cycles of post-war economic reconstruction, and Akira holds out the possibility of moving beyond Japan's post-war repetition." The ending of Akira ends in destruction once again, and leaves the protagonist wondering what to do now. It leaves the audience wondering alongside Kaneda and Kei as to what actions they must take to prevent further destruction from befalling their world. In this ending, Akira achieves its goal in speaking against repeating cycles of trauma through means of mass destruction such as nuclear weapons. Rather than constantly repeating destruction, Otomo wants the viewer to see the other option of emerging from destruction to begin a new, better era. Princess Mononoke is a film about nature and humans. This is clear to just about anyone who has seen the movie, but saying it is just about nature and humans is doing it a great disservice. When director Hayao Miyazaki began making the film, he had the clear goal to address themes of ecology and the environment. In Princess Mononoke, Miyazaki focuses in on the imbalance between humans and nature. While the film captures this imbalance as a battle between humans and animal gods, the real world that Miyazaki was responding to was experiencing the consequences of this imbalance in the form of oil spills and climate changes. By looking at how the issues of the film reflect the context of our world, the message of protecting the environment and ensuring balance between nature and humanity becomes increasingly clear. Environmental protection is anything but a new subject for animated films, with it being seen as early as 1942 in Disney's Bambi. The issue has been tackled by numerous children's animated films that mainly follow a clear-cut story, which includes a hero of nature, a villain representing industry or humanity, and a happy ending in which the hero wins and the environment is saved. Princess Mononoke denies this standard structure by providing what Benjamin Thevenin refers to as a new nature narrative. Rather than simplifying environmental issues into a basic story for children, Princess Mononoke exemplifies the complexities of the topic throughout its runtime. In relation to this, Miyazaki stated, "I think that if you are very genuine in doing films for young children, you must aim for their heads. not deciding for them what will be too much for them to handle. Princess Mononoke achieved exactly this through its use of an ancient setting, nuanced characters, and open ending. The film is set in 15th century Japan, a time where Miyazaki believed the power of the forest was much stronger than humans' power. This medieval setting allows us to juxtapose the human and nature relationship found in the movie with the one we can see in the present day. First of all, we see a great contrast in the power of nature. Princess Mononoke depicts flourishing forests and animal gods to reflect a time where nature was much more dominant than it is today. On the other hand, we see similarities between the way humans exploit nature for their own benefit. Just as Lady Eboshi and the civilians of Irontown harvest the forest to grow their town, the industries and factories of the present day also exploit nature's resources for their own gain. Speaking of this, Lady Eboshi also highlights the film's use of complex characters to accurately depict the environmental crisis happening in reality. Even though this strong leader is doing everything for her people and her town, Lady Eboshi is inadvertently harming the environment and pushing the world closer to an apocalyptic end. With complex characters such as this, Miyazaki truly captures the idea that good and evil are not always clear-cut. It shows that environmental harm is not always caused by evil people, but by people just like anyone else. Through this, the audience is given the same goal as protagonist Ashitaka, to see with eyes unclouded by hate. Rather than to simply stand on one side of the issue, Miyazaki wants the viewer to become observant to the environmental issues in the real world and find ways in which they can work to protect the environment. Both Akira and Princess Mononoke include strong messages that are still relevant today. Looking at both films side by side, there are many similarities and differences visible between the two. Both films were created to respond to different issues in the real world. Akira critiques the pointless cycle of destruction and war, while Princess Mononoke addresses the urgent climate crisis in the modern day. Both films utilize their unique settings to reflect the current world. Akira's futuristic Neo-Tokyo looks back at post-war Japan, while also warning the present audience from repeating cycles of the past. Princess Mononoke's ancient setting draws attention to the current imbalance of power between humans and nature, as well as the possible consequences for the world's environmental issues. And finally, by closing with an open ending, these films encourage the viewer to continue the fights of the protagonists through their own actions in the real world. Even though the films have different messages and drastically different stories, both films use the medium of animation to respond to real-world issues and inspire change throughout current society.